Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about delegation. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, is it a good or bad practice for senior developers to delegate the unit test for the implementation code that they write to junior developers in the team? Well, it depends. It depends on if they're doing it to avoid having to do it themselves because they're incompetent or weak in their unit testing, or if there is a goal with doing this. Let me explain that a little bit. So, when I train a junior, or I train any software developer, the first thing for me as the person who's going to do the training is to identify where are the weak spots of this person. What is it that the person needs to be exposed to? Because I'm a big believer in exposing people to situations and using that as a format for them to actually learn how to survive in the environment. And so if I'm dealing with a junior software developer, let's say that I'm dealing with them on their first day, or like right after they have gotten like their laptop or workstation or whatever, and like they're sort of supposed to pick up their first work. The way that I always structure things is with a roadmap learning curve, where the first thing that they get to do are very basic things. The reason why I start out basic is not because they may not be able to handle more. I give the same thing to senior software developers. It is so that they can earn my trust, that they can handle more stuff. And at the same time, most of them are going to want something easy to start with, because there's a lot of steps usually in terms of releasing code into production. And that is very important to understand, because if you have a lot of work, or like you get a really big fat store in the beginning, it's really bad if that you don't really understand how to deploy it or some other stuff, because now there's so much investment into you delivering this thing that it becomes like a problem basically. But if you just start out with a few very small stores that go very quickly, then you can take that small little thing that you did and get it into the deployment pipeline, and just so you can learn how deploying works. And then after you ship a few very small things, well, then you sort of understand, okay, this is the way we do work here in this company. Okay, first it's going to be like, code reviews and testing and all of this stuff, right? And then when you've done that, you start feeling like, yeah, you understand how this works, and then you pick up something bigger. And this is where unit testing is very, very good. And so, unfortunately, there's a lot of projects that have very spotty unit testing. So for a junior software developer, it's actually not a bad idea to give them, as an introduction to the code base, the task to refactor something or fix something that is not so nice, or similar sorts of tasks, because these things are very low risk. What's very beautiful about having someone like, I've given this task to a few of my developers in teams that I've worked in, like the juniors, where they get this challenge such as convert all of these environmental checks to a central configuration. Fix the type system, or do like add a stricter type system, for example, if it's something like TypeScript or something like that, or in some cases write unit test, or like this component is a very important component because it's one of those things that are being used all over the place. Can you refactor that, make it a little bit more generic, clean it up, and then put some real unit tests on it, because it's something we're using quite a lot. These challenges are very low risk, they're very isolated, and you get a very good chance of seeing, it's more comfortable for the junior because there's not that much complexity and like responsibility and all this domain knowledge they might need involved in the work. And you get a chance to really see, like, okay, at the basic level, how long does things take for this person, what do they need help with, etc. It becomes a very good way for you to evaluate how well things are going to go for this person, or like what type of challenges they should fit with, right? That's the times I feel that this is a very good approach. It's not a good approach to just have it as a rule, to just say that, yeah, juniors do unit testing or things like that. The reason being because what you're doing is that one part, it could be a personal problem that you yourself feel that you are weak in this area and you're avoiding it because reasons. Another way that a lot of companies do it is that they offload the testing and things like that to like a QA team or something else like that. That's also stupid, because what happens is that the developers get used to not having to focus so much on quality with their work. So you get this bounce system where the developers do a lot of coding, they throw it over the wall to the QA team, start and pick up the next thing. And I like to ask people who work that way, how many stores do you have in transit right now? Because the delay is going to be measured in maybe an hour, few hours, few days from the QA team. And then they're going to realize that there's something wrong with your implementation and bounce it back to you. And by the time that you get that bounce back, you have already started on store number 2. And if you're really fast, or the feedback loop is slow, you're going to have store number 2 over the wall. And now you get back story number 1. And if you're really unlucky, you've already started on story number 3. And so all of a sudden you're juggling several stories at the same time, bouncing them back and forth and context switching like a crazy person, because you didn't take the time to actually do it right the first time. And that is why testing should not be something that is exclusive to the QA team. It is something that the developers have to know themselves. And test-driven development would be an example of where that would pretty much be impossible if you don't do the testing yourself. So if you give that to a junior or somebody else, that's actually a very bad thing for your personal development, and it's a bad thing for the overall quality of the code base. Another aspect of it is that it's going to be boring as bad word for the junior. It's sort of like saying to a senior that, well, you're so experienced that all you should do is code reviews or things like that. That actually hurts that person's personal development, because the thing that everybody has to understand is that you learn by doing. Learning by doing is the way that software developers get the skills in the first place, and the quickest way to lose them is through not doing. As soon as you stop doing with practical exercises and things like that, you already taken the step towards becoming an architect or a person who has theoretical skills but can't actually produce anything by themselves, or like they can't actually write the code that is necessary. And that's really, really bad. And the goal should be to train the junior to be able to become a senior, and that's not going to happen by just doing unit testing. It's a very bad strategy. The goal is, as I said, the best way, in my opinion, is to treat them just as someone who's progressing through a set of check marks or leveling up the junior. You start them out with the smaller problems, work them up until they can basically replace you if necessary. That is the responsible tech lead, senior, whatever type of person's way of teaching a junior to become an experienced software developer. So just having them write unit tests, no. Maybe as an introduction, maybe as a way to, which I like to say, like exposing them to many areas of the code so that they can build up that domain knowledge. But that's just a temporary thing you do in order for them to feel comfortable in the code and like the way you do work. Long term, they should be working just as anybody else. So what I want you to take away from this is that, yes, I would consider it to be a very bad practice to delegate unit testing to anybody except the software developer who's actually writing the damn code. One part is because if you were an experienced software developer, did you realize that, you know, the code that you write and put up for pull requests and stuff like that, well, the juniors are probably going to learn some stuff from reading your code. So that's actually a benefit with you writing the tests yourself, because it shows how to write tests to the juniors. But on the other hand, if you just give the responsibility to the junior, you are making yourself a worse software developer, and you are forcing them into a workflow where they're not actually learning how to do real software development. They're just learning how to write unit tests. That's not good. They need to be actually involved in the same sort of work that you are. It's just that they need to do it at a lower level so they can level up and become seniors one day. So I argue to people that my preferred method of doing things is to start off with very simple, small exercises, which could be write some unit tests. Take a component that is important. It has to be meaningful work, but it doesn't have to be complicated work for it to be meaningful. And then start them out that way. Refactor this component, write some unit tests on this thing, and ship it so that they can learn how to ship things and feel comfortable at releasing things into production, etc., etc. That's a very good initial learning path for anybody, even seniors. I do this with the more experienced developers as well. And then long term, everybody who is writing software, anybody who's writing code, should know how to write their own damn unit tests. Have a great day.